Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Moments with Dr. I, the program brought to you by Dr. I with objectives on academic excellence, career orientation and youth leadership. I am your host, Shay Leonarda, and I'm privileged to be a part of Dr. I. On today's show, I have with me Dr. Theophile, a medical doctor, a lecturer in health universities, and founder of Dr. I, bringing us with a wealth of knowledge and experience in today's episode, which will be the cone of learning, and we are excited to dive into our discussion for today. We'll be exploring and uncovering some fascinating insights that will leave you feeling inspired and informed. Within the next 30 minutes, we'll dive deep into the subject, discussing key aspects and sharing valuable tips and addressing some of the most pressing questions related to the cone of learning. We also have an interactive segment with you, our dear listeners, can participate, sharing your thoughts through social media. Whether you are a student, a long life learner, or simply curious about the world around you, this show aims to provide you with the tools and information you need to broaden your horizon and enhance your understanding. So sit back as we embark on this educational journey with us. Without any waste of time, let's welcome our esteemed guest, Dr. Theophile. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Leonarda.
How was your day?
My day was excellent. A little tiring, but it's okay. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so today we are going to be talking about the cone of learning, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us, what is the cone of learning all about, and who has written the concept of the cone of learning?
Yeah, you're going ahead of time. You're smart. So the cone of learning is an experience that a professor in the United States called Edgar Dale was able to come up with. And Edgar Dale was an American educator who was always concerned about discovering new ways to help students study better.
Okay.
And so Edgar Dale, in the course of that his endeavor, he did a lot of research and tried to study what were the environmental conditions gathered to make students be the best of their performances. And one of the things Edgar Dale came about with was the cone of learning. And so the cone of learning is kind of a short summary in a pyramidal form that sums up some of the environmental conditions and some of the engaging practices that a student can do in collaboration with his educator, that means his lecturer, to guarantee that he is able to learn effectively. In a shorter and a simpler form, the cone of learning is a set of steps and a set of actions that helps the student engage more and more with his learning experience to the point that he is able to remember most of it and understand it to the best as possible.
All right. Okay, Dr. Theophile, so we'll move to our next question. So why is it important to know about the cone of learning?
Oh, the cone of learning is very important to learn about for a couple of reasons. Permit me to cite a scripture. I believe so much in the wisdom of the Word of God. Luke chapter 6 verse 47 to 49 is the story of Jesus is speaking, and perhaps maybe you are not a believer, I don't know, but at least let's learn from the story. We always learn from parables and story, and
yes.
I want us to pick a lesson from this story. Jesus is speaking, and he says that the one who listens to the Word of God and puts it into practice is likable to one who builds a house and has built a solid foundation before building the house. And he says that the one who doesn't practice the Word of God after listening to it is like one who decided to build his house on the sand. So look at this practically to transliterate it and connect it to the educational system, to what we are talking about today, the cone of learning. What you need to know is that your learning, when it is practical, the more practical your learning is, the more the foundation that makes it sustainable. That means it makes it to stay for long in your mind, and in an organized way, that means you get understanding. Because if you see the house that was able to withstand storms, withstand challenges. It was a house that had a foundation. And Jesus said the house that had a foundation and was able to stay for long is the house that is equivalent to somebody who heard something and practiced what he heard. He learned something and practiced it. And so now his learning experience now became a house that is built on a foundation that no storm, no flood, or nothing can be able to shake that house and destroy it. So the point is about you being able to practicalize your learning so that whatever you have learned, you will understand it perfectly and you will always be able to remember it. Which is not the case with the one who was learning but did not put it into practice. He was like one who built a house without a foundation. Have you ever built a house without a foundation? Do you know anyone who has built a house without a foundation? I can tell you the conclusion is always the same. The house will be destroyed in a matter of time. It is the same with one who learns but never practicalizes what he learns. When he doesn't practicalize what he learns, he will forget what he has learned. It is just a matter of time. It is just a matter of time. So making what you learn practical is a foundation that guarantees that you will understand well and you won't forget the information you have learned. And so you want to know about the cone of learning because Edgar Dale, it's also called the cone of experience. Edgar Dale called it the cone of experience because it was a set of steps from less practical to more practical in order to engage your learning experience and make sure that you're able to understand well and that you won't forget what you have learned.
Wow, that is very interesting, guys. Are you getting this? Your learning and your practice is likened to the Bible story which says that a man who built his house on a rock, it shall stand through every flood and every storm. So let's move to our next aspect of curiosity. So what is the cone of learning all about?
All right. So in as much as I proceed into the concept of the cone of learning, it's very important for me to talk about the fact that for you to have a background of the person who came up with this concept, Edgar Dale, he was born in April 27 and in the 1900s in the USA, in the United States of America. That's more than 120 years ago. But this guy, because of this concept, he was able to develop and provide several contributions to the educational system and new ways of providing education, such as audiovisual education. So he was kind of the pioneer into these new forms of providing education to people to make sure that people can learn better. I don't know if you agree with me, but the truth is that many people learn in different ways. There is somebody that he just needs to read a book and he will photocopy the book in his mind. There are other people that if they are not in class and they are not listening to the teacher, they won't understand. There are other people that when they are learning, they must write down the notes again, even if it's in short summary form, for them to learn. So people have different ways of engaging their learning in a practical way so that they can understand well and remember it. And so Edgar Dale was one of the pioneers to spearhead the move of different ways of educating people aside from the standard classroom teacher and big class of many students. The teacher is talking most of the time and the students are just listening. That kind of classroom, Edgar Dale was able to expand the learning experience beyond the classroom. And that's why it's important for you to know this, because this guy was a genius in the educational system. And without what he has done, we wouldn't even have e-learning today. We wouldn't even have lectures on YouTube, on internet. It is because of his concept. So now, talking about the cone of experience, the cone of experience, like the name implies, it's a cone, it's a pyramid. It's something that looks triangular, and the reason why it's triangular is because it goes from top to bottom, and from the top, it is narrow. That means your ability to remember, your ability to understand is limited. But as you are going down the cone or down the pyramid, it enlarges down, so that by the time you are reaching the maximum level down, your retentive capacity is at its highest peak and your understanding ability is also at its highest performance. So that's why you call it the cone of learning. Now the cone of learning talks about what you can do to guarantee a certain percentage of understanding and remembering averagely about 2 weeks after you have read or after you have engaged with knowledge. And remember, like I said, that the cone of learning is going from less practical to most practical. So from up, that is the narrowest part of the cone, is least practical, to down, which is the largest part of the cone, it is more practical. And this is what we shall be talking about today. So dear guys, please, you who are listening to me right now, you want to make sure that your friends are connecting to this radio platform so that they can be aware of what we are talking about, because we do not know if we are going to have a rebroadcast. And so now, starting from the beginning, the cone of learning is divided into 2 parts grossly. You have the passive approach to learning and the active approach to learning. And of course, it's needless for me to insist that the passive approach to learning is just the uppermost part of the cone. And the active approach to learning is one that is below and has the highest potential to give you a good retentive memory and to give you excellent understanding. Now let's dive into it straight away. The passive approach to the cone of learning. Edgar Dale says you have reading. That's the first step. He says when you read an information, you would usually remember only 10% of what you have read after 2 weeks. So reading is not that easy. You know, people who are geniuses at reading and understanding, well, perhaps they might pride themselves in that particular way of learning, but there are better ways of learning. And if you engage these other better ways, it would enhance your study, I promise you, in more than 100-fold. If you read in 2 weeks, it is generally average, for the average person, generally recognized that you remember only 10% of what you have read after 2 weeks. Now, after this, you get to the next level, which is below reading. This is where you actually hear information. The first step is where you read information. The second step is where you hear information. When you hear information, and this is the point where you are actually engaging information not only from your eyes but from your ears. Because when you hear information, you remember 20% of what you hear. And that's the reason why those who are in class during the lecture tend to perform better than those who are not. And at the third level is when you see information. Not seeing something written down, seeing a practical scenario being demonstrated. Like if you are watching a demonstration, there's no sound, just seeing something. If you are seeing something happening, you most probably remember what you saw, then remember what you heard, and then remember what you read.
Okay.
So the more you are going down, the more your senses are engaged, and the more things become a little bit more practical at the time. And then that's 10, 20, 30 for reading, hearing, and seeing information respectively. Now you get to the next step, which is the last step of passive engagement with information, where you see and you hear. When you see and you hear information, you remember at least 50% of what you have seen and heard. You remember at least 50% of what you have seen and you have heard after 2 weeks. So imagine this, and these are just all passive. That means you are receiving information. You are not doing something to the information. You are just without any effort receiving the information. Your eyes are open all the time. You don't need effort to see. Your ears are open all the time. You don't need effort to hear. It's the same with reading. But the more you go down the pyramid, the more you are able to understand better, and the more you're able to remember. So don't forget, 10% for reading, 20% for hearing, 30% for seeing, and 50% for seeing and hearing. Now that was the passive form of engaging information. Now you have the active form of engaging information, and there are 2 principal steps there. Edgar Dale says that the first thing that gives you a significant advantage in your ability to remember information, practically speaking, actively speaking, is to say it. That is why I, who am at the radio now speaking to you about this, I will remember more about this concept than you guys who are just hearing, unless you decide to share it with others. Is that okay, guys? Yeah. So when you participate in a discussion, that is the reason why when you talk with somebody, you most probably remember what you said. I did not say, this is what I said. I know what I said now. Because when you say something, you usually remember 70% of what you have said. I promise you guys, if you will engage these principles, your studies will know a significant difference. And also, the last step, which is the most practical of all, active in itself, is when you do the information. That means when you translate the information into an experiment and you do it. Like when you have a simulation, like when you have practicals in schools. I mean, you will not tell me that between practicals and which one do you prefer, dear student? If you prefer practicals compared to the class, just write to me right now, Doctor, I prefer practicals. Doctor, I prefer the lecture in class. My number 695-640869. That's my WhatsApp number, 695-640869. So just write to me right now. Let me know that you prefer either practicals or theory. But the truth is that the majority of you people will take practicals, if not all of you. Because whenever you do something, there are many parts of your body that are engaged in it. Your sight is there, your ears are there, your mouth is most probably there too, and your hands are there too. A maximum of your senses are engaged, and therefore you're able to remember the most when you practicalize information. So that in essence is the cone of learning.
Wow, that's really wonderful. Okay, guys, we'll move to our next question. So, Doctor, can you tell us how a student can practically implement the cone of learning?
All right. So, this is my I love talking about this, and I'm excited at the impact of this into the lives of you, dear student who is listening to me right now. And I would like to talk about it. But before I talk about it, I would like to speak to all the students who are in advanced level in Bamenda. It's been a couple of days that we as an organization will organize our academic excellence campaign. We're probably at your school, and if you are a parent and you are listening to this, just know that we're probably at the school of your son or your daughter, and we provided them brochures on academic excellence free of charge. And in the middle segment of the internal portion of the brochure, you have this cone of learning. So it is with something that you already have. You can read it by yourself. And also would like to inform you about the fact that this month of February we'll be carrying out our career orientation conference in one of the classiest hotels in Bamenda. We'll inform you about it in the course of time, definitely. But this month, just get prepared before you write your exams. That means your regional mock will probably be part of the conference. It's just a 3 to 4 hour conference in one of the classiest hotels in Bamenda. Come and learn what is going to help you to move forward in life, as we as a team have been able to make that move forward in life. So as a medical doctor and a university lecturer, I can guarantee you that it's going to transform your life. Now, getting back to the question on a practical note, how can a student in advanced level now engage the cone of learning? Of course, you don't need me to tell you about reading. You have books, you have textbooks, you have materials that you can download online, So that's that for reading. Now for hearing, number 1, attend lectures. Attend lectures. Don't miss class. Don't miss class, my dear people. Please don't miss class. And whenever you have the opportunity of not being able to be in class, ask somebody to always be able to explain to you what was said in class. Because when the person explains to you, you are hearing. And when you couple that with reading, it will give you a significant advantage. But now, one of the advantages that you have also in attending the class is that you don't only hear, you also have the opportunity to see. That's why people remember people's faces more than their names. And has that ever happened to you, Leonardo?
Yes.
That you see somebody, you recognize the person by the face, but you don't know the name.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the point. Because what you see, you remember compared to what you hear. or what you read, that one what you read is even the worst. You most probably will not know the name, but you know that you have seen this face before. So that's why you need to be in class, guys, and you need to watch images of what is being explained. If they explain to you the cycle, the water cycle, look for an image that talks about the water cycle. From that image, you will be able to explain the water cycle. If they explain to you the cardiac cycle, the cycle of the functioning of the heart, if you have done cardiovascular system already, you just look for the diagram of the heart. And when you look at that diagram of the heart, that flow of the heart from blood from the heart to the organs, to the lungs, back to the heart, and so on and so forth, you would understand better how that process functions, because you are seeing it. Are we together?
Yeah.
But now to see and hear, like I said, what you have to do is watch a video that talks about the concept. Let me ask you guys a question. Between you and me, between what you watch in a movie and what you read, which one will you remember?
I watched.
It's what you have watched. The answer is just self-explanatory. What you watch will remain most probably for long in your mind, compared to what you just read, hear, or see as a static image. If you watch a movie, you remember it. And most probably, most of you know that watching movies is easier to do than to read a book.
Yes.
First of all, if you take Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings is a common movie. Most of you should know it. Lord of the Rings is a common movie produced by brilliant and intelligent actors in the United States. It comes in 3 volumes. You can watch the movie volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. Part 1, part 2, and part 3. But if they give you the book to read, you'll most probably not finish today. So the advantage of watching a concept in a movie is that it shortens the time of your learning. If you were to explain digestion, right? You were watching a movie on digestion and you were to read the process of digestion. It is most likely that by watching a movie, you would take lesser time to absorb that information.
That's
and
true.
you remember digestion more than if you were reading it. Am I saying you shouldn't read? No. Reading is part of your learning process. It develops your abstract learning. And abstract faculties are required for critical thinking and creative thinking. So the two are very important. But I'm trying to show you things, how you can complement them one another so you can excel in your studies. Watch a movie, look at a practical experience. Look at a practical experience. Look at a practical experience. Look when somebody is doing something practically. The other day I demonstrated Newton's first law of motion in class. I demonstrated it by slapping a student. The student was stationary, he wasn't moving. For those who understand physics, they know what I'm talking about. He was stationary, he wasn't moving until when my slap acted on him. External unbalance force acted on him and he moved. That's Newton's first law, and everybody saw that in class and they were laughing. And because they were able to see and hear and everything, they would difficultly forget. So attend class, watch a movie of that concept. There are many videos on YouTube. That's what I was doing when I was in opposite. That's my secret. I'm just unleashing to you right now. Watch demonstrations or exhibitions, or see the process when it is being done. Now, to get to the other side of the coin, where you have the active phase, give a presentation, a vocal presentation. You opt to be in class and do an expose on that concept. The more you talk about it, the more you remember it. Number 2, share what you have learned with your classmates. Because when you talk about something, you will agree with me that you understand it even more. And the last step, which is the most practical of all, doing it, is that instead of watching a demonstration in class or a practical session that somebody else is doing, become the one who is doing it. Instead of watching the movie, become the one acting the movie. Become the one acting the movie. If you're acting a movie of Newton's first law of motion that I just explained to you, become the one that is acting the movie. You won't forget. After all, that student was almost angry with me simply because I almost slapped him. So being part of a dramatic presentation, you are inside the drama, you will difficultly forget.
Right.
And also simulate a real experience of what you are learning. I remember when we were in school, one of the most practical ways we learned was through certain projects that his teacher would ask us to carry out after we studied the concept in class. And one of them I'll never remember, I was in Form 2 and we were learning about osmosis. And the teacher asked us to do something. He said, dear people, go to the house, take cocoyam, dig the middle of it, put salt in the middle of the cocoyam, and put the cocoyam in water in a pan. And you will see that water will move from a less osmotically concentrated area to a more osmotically active area. That's where the salt is found. And we left the pan there. I left the pan there. I can remember that pan was in iron. I can still remember it as it was yesterday. That pan was in iron. I'm closing my eyes, I'm remembering the scene. And I was this young and I was watching this experiment. I went to sleep. I came back in the morning, lo and behold, the water level I had marked in the pan had reduced. And much of the water had gone to the place inside the yam where there was salt. Osmosis. And that's how you can also absorb information, by doing it practically. Remember what I said in the beginning. Making what you learn practical is a foundation that guarantees that you will understand at best and you would forget everything you have learned.
Okay guys, and that brings us to the end of today's episode with Moments with Dr. I. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation with Dr. Theophile and gained valuable insights into the cone of learning. Remember, learning never stops. If you have any further questions or would like to continue the discussion, feel free to reach out to us through our social media channels or website. We also love hearing from you, our listeners, and value your feedback. You can also get to us on WhatsApp on 650321297. I repeat, 650321297. Next week we have another exciting episode lined up for you. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to you, our wonderful guest, Dr. Theophile, for sharing this expertise and shedding light on the cone of learning. Your insights have been truly enlightening to me, and I believe to you too. We are grateful for your valuable contribution to the show.
Sure.
Lastly, I would like to extend my big thank you to all of our listeners for joining us today. Without your support and enthusiasm, this show wouldn't be possible. Remember, the key to unlocking your potential lies with you. So embrace change, get out of your comfort zone, and never stop learning. You have what it takes to create the life you desire. Until next time, keep striving for greatness. Until next time, this is your host, Shay Leonardo, signing off. Stay curious, stay inspired, and keep learning. Goodbye.